and welcome to The Resourceful Woman. Today I am going to be talking through how to replace elastic on things where the elastic in your clothing is shot. This came up this week because it's almost Halloween and I went up into my costume box in the attic and I found that a lot of my old costume pieces are so old that the elastic is just completely gone out. Just there's no stretch to it anymore. Some of these pieces are homemade and some were manufactured. I'm going to go through each one and just show you how to do a like actually putting new elastic in. But what I'm actually going to do with most of these is just replace the elastic with ties so that they don't wear out later. So this is pretty great. It's a great way to keep your costumes and any other clothing pieces lasting longer, and it's really easy to do. So let's get started. First things first, taking a look at one of these old pieces that already has a drawstring in it, just to see sort of how it's done and test it out and make sure that it looks okay. So I've decided that for most of the fixes I'm going to make today, I'm going to make drawstring closures. So all I need to do is get some fabric to make the string itself and then put it all together. In order to make some drawstrings, I'm going to need some fabric. So what I did here, I took this old pillowcase that I actually dug out of a skip several months ago. It does have some visible stains, but it has, rest assured, been cleaned. So it is ready to use. Would never want to use it necessarily as a pillowcase again. I just rescued it from the garbage because I thought that this fabric would come in handy at some point, and it has. So what I do here is just trim off the side hem and then start to trim it down into long strips about 1.5 inches wide. And what you can do if you don't feel like sewing is just trim strips as narrow as you need and just use those. What I preferred to do here was to trim strips that are actually twice as wide as I need them to be, sew them together, and then turn them inside out to make them a little bit stronger and a little bit tidier than simply a cut strip. But you don't need to sew this. This is something you can do completely without a needle and thread or sewing machine. I don't know exactly how much fabric I'm going to need, so I'm just going to cut up, I don't know, a half a dozen something strips until I'm sure that I have everything that I need. If it turns out that I need these to be longer than what the fabric is, I can just sew 2 strips together into a double length. Here, just to make a nice clean drawstring and make sure that it's extra strong, I'm folding it over in half and then sewing down about 1/4 inch from the edge. And then I will turn this inside out to make a nice long drawstring. So what I'm doing here is cutting a notch in the end of the strip that I've just put together, and then put the crochet hook down into the middle, hook it onto the notch that I've just made, and then use that to pull the fabric entirely through itself to turn it inside out. This is fairly simple. It does get bunched up and it can be a little bit tricky to get started, but eventually, like as you get further down, it's it's like the fabric knows what to do and it gets a lot easier. You can see here that the fabric has started to fray at the edge, and that's part of the reason why I like to sew it together in the first place. Is, if you were just to take a strip and not sew it, you might have a lot of fraying and it might get very messy very quickly. So this way it's nice and clean, it's got the strength and the durability, so this should work really well. So this skirt that I'm working on is a factory-made piece. And I could probably take a seam ripper and open up a bit of a seam to get the elastic out. But instead, I'm just going to cut a hole that is the same hole that I can use to insert my new drawstring. This one, for whatever reason, it was made with 2 layers of elastic at the top. Both of those elastics have completely worn out, so I am going to pull them both out and replace them both with drawstrings. And the wonderful part about this is it's really quick and easy to do. So if I don't like what I've done, I can just go back and change it. If I insert some drawstrings here and I decide, oh, you know what, this isn't really great with drawstrings, it really needs elastic, I can just go back and put in new elastic in like 10 minutes. So I just pulled the elastic out, no mess, no fuss. It's totally fine. I mean, it's nasty. I can't really reuse it for anything else. I haven't thrown it away yet, but I don't really know what old, dried up, unstretchy elastic could ever be used for. Now, to insert the drawstring, it's the exact same method that I used to create the drawstring in the first place. I catch the crochet hook on the little notch that I made in the end of the fabric, and then I use that to feed it through the hole that is left from where the elastic used to be, and feed it all the way around. I sometimes have to readjust the fabric a little bit, but it pulls out quite cleanly. Here you can see a common problem that happens when doing this is that the crochet hook became unhooked from the little notch in the drawstring fabric, and I lost it midway through. I didn't really want to pull the whole thing out and start over again, so I just cut another little hole at the place where I dropped it, just enough so that I could get my fingers in there, get the crochet hook back on in place where it was supposed to be, and carry on and pull it through. And there you see, that is my first drawstring done. Seems to be working pretty well so far. I tie little knots in the ends of the drawstring to try to prevent it from getting lost inside the whatever it is, the space where the drawstring goes. What do you call that? A cavern? A hole? Yeah, so anyway, I make knots to try to stop that from happening. Okay, so I've shown you how to do the drawstring bits, which of course you can do without sewing, as I mentioned. But here's a way to replace elastic with more elastic and not have to sew it at all. Just as before, I'm going to cut open where the elastic is in this factory-made piece and first pull out the old dead elastic. Then what I'm going to do is feed through some new elastic using a crochet hook. But of course on this I discovered that the little hole where everything is fed through is much smaller than the one I was working on before. So I'm going to need just a smaller crochet hook. And all I do, instead of cutting a notch, I can just tie the elastic to the crochet hook and feed it on through. I wasn't really exactly sure how long of a piece of elastic I needed, so all I did was take out the old dead piece and cut one the same length. Now I know that my stretchy piece doesn't need to be as long as the old piece, because the old piece is all stretched out. But by having this just a little bit extra long, it makes it super adjustable to any size. And you'll see that a bit later, that I can adjust it way out to fit a larger person or way in to fit a smaller person. In addition to doing the neckline of this piece in elastic, I also want to take out and replace the elastics that are in the armholes. So again, first all I have to do is take out the old elastic. To measure how much I need for the ends of the sleeves, I just kind of take the measurement. What would it take to get around my fist if I were going to, put this top on? I would have to get it over my hand and have it fit fairly snugly at my wrist, but also not be so tight that I couldn't push it up my arm a little bit. I did discover something, and that is that the sleeve opening on this blouse is massive because it's so big and bunchy, big poofy sleeves. It's a lot of fabric. And the first time that I did this, I accidentally pulled the elastic right through. The end just came in and I got it kind of lost inside. So what I did to fix that was I took a safety pin and pinned it to the end of the elastic, not the end that's being fed through, but the opposite end, so that when it got all the way around, it didn't then just creep in and get lost inside. And then once I actually have it fed through in the fabric, I can tie the ends together to make sure that they're the right width and they're going to hold well, no matter where on my arm I want to place the ends. Finally, when I'm done, I test out how the feel of the armhole feels going over my hand and fitting around my wrist, and they both seem pretty good. So I'm not even going to worry about measurements or anything. Here I am doing another sleeve, only this time I'm going to take out the elastic and replace it with a drawstring. I don't know if I'm going to like this or not, but fortunately, if I don't like it, I can always change it later. It doesn't matter really what color of fabric you use for this, because it is all going to be hidden when you actually are wearing the clothing, which I'll show you later. If you're putting in a drawstring, you just pull it through, tie it, and then tuck it in, so it shouldn't really show anywhere. I do want to reiterate, you really don't need to sew any of this. You just do this with a pair of scissors and either a crochet hook or something to help you feed the drawstrings or the elastics through. You could probably even use a ballpoint pen as long as the opening that you're drawing it through is wide enough to accommodate it. And now that I have replaced all of the elastics that had worn out, I'm done with all of those pieces. It was 2 tops and 2 skirts in total. I noticed that this apron that is also part of this costume set has some stains that have never come out. Now I know that this has been recently washed. The stains seem to have set in permanently from I don't know when. So all I'm going to do, instead of trying to dye it or cover it up in some way, I think what I'm going to do is just create patches that add a little bit more kind of interest to the piece as a whole. So because this is kind of a Renaissance era costume, I don't want to use any printed fabric or any like super bright colors. I'm going to use kind of muted earthy tones, and I'm going to use some nice embroidery thread also in earthy tones and make it like a very visible fix. Because, if you're sort of dressing in a peasant's costume and you're wearing an apron to begin with, then why not have some visible patchwork to make yourself just look that much more woebegone? And as you can see here, I'm just creating very uneven, very visible stitches and layering a couple of different patches over all the different places where there are visible stains. So now here you can see we're finally ready to try on our finished costume pieces. With the neckline elastic that I replaced, in order to adjust it so that it fits my daughter's very tiny frame in the right way, I'm just going to pull it until it is the right kind of length, and then tie the elastic in a knot. So in that way, this is always easily adjustable up and down for whoever happens to be wearing this. Now for the drawstring sleeve, she's going to help me by pulling the drawstrings tight at the part on my arm where I want the sleeve to fall. Obviously not too tight so that she doesn't cut off circulation, but just tight enough that she can tie it in a bow and tuck the strings away. Now we're just going to do the same thing with our skirts, is just pull them up into place, pull the drawstrings, and tighten them at the place where we want them to fall, and then tuck our drawstrings away into the waistbands. And here you can see two freshly reinvigorated Renaissance costumes ready to wear in time for Halloween. This entire project, all the different little fixes and things, really only took about an hour or so in total, I think. I'm not sure. I was listening to podcasts, and yeah, it was pretty quick. This is also super cheap to do. Obviously, I'm just reusing an old pillowcase and just fixing up old costume pieces. I feel pretty good about this because I know that I am keeping my costume pieces for longer and keeping them wearable and not just throwing things out because the elastic is worn out.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked, please do be sure to give me a thumbs up. Leave any comments about anything like this that you've tried, and just join the conversation. Let me know. Also, you can find me over on Instagram at resourceful_woman and on Facebook at resourcefulwoman UK. So hope to see you again soon, and bye-bye.